Justin.
Well, got it recording right to your computer, Candy.
Okay. Thanks, Scott. I think you have to go click that other computer too.
Thank you.
Oh, mine's sitting on this. I don't know if it'll reach this.
I don't think I told you, we ordered Jay one of those shadow boxes for her hole-in-one thing when it came. I thought it was gonna be like this. It's like
We do an aerial shot of Saddleback.
Go big or go home.
no. So you put a picture of them on there, and then you put the scorecard. You know, they gave you a thing. I thought it was gonna be engraved, but it was just printed off. But it still looks pretty cool.
I bet not every one of my home runs have been on men's night.
Oh, that's
In
expensive.
Echo Valley, out here. Yes, 2 out of 3 were quite pricey, especially the last one Bubba found out about it.
Oh, geez.
He beat me to, before I got done with my round, he was out there with 3 guys drinking.
I like when it happens on a girls' golf night. Jay got back in there, my dad's like, I'll buy whoever wants something. JV golf, there's nobody there. She needs to go around to her friend, you want some water, you want a hot dog, you want chips, what do you want?
Yeah. One thing excited. Yeah.
So I was taking, they do the live scoring, and so I went on to hole 16. Well, I dropped the girls off at hole 16 to start with, and so then Curtis is like, hey, Lily Hotaker has to go, can you go out there to line? Yeah, sure. So I go out there, and the very last group was the 6s. I took pictures of their cards, and they left. And then there was nobody, and the ones were just getting off of 9. So I had to wait for the ones to get from 10 all the way to 16.
Oh,
So I just sitting there, Tommy comes over, I'm like, man, you got some bug sprays. Like, you should just follow us around. I'm just gonna watch you guys. I'm just gonna stand up on the ledge and just watch you guys go around.
oh, good day.
No, so
So yeah, I had about an hour and a half. And he's like, is everything okay out there? I'm like, yeah, I just got a little gap.
Yeah.
Allie Queens was on 13, so I went over there to make sure, because I was gonna, if she wasn't over there, I was gonna go and take scores until it got to 16 and then move back over there. She's like, well, I've been sitting here for about an hour and a half and have anybody go, oh, you're gonna have some pretty soon.
So were you sitting up at the green on 16 or the tee box?
I was a T-box. So when they got off 15, then I would take a picture of their scorecard and then what school they were from and send it to Betsy. And then she put it in the scoring system. And that way we'd keep, like, parents that weren't there, they could see what the scores were on it.
What?
I was voting.
Who did that?
But yeah.
What's going on?
All right, is everybody ready to go?
Sure.
We will go ahead and call to order the City of Solon regular council meeting for Wednesday, May 15th. Start with the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
With our civility pledge, we pledge to promote civility by listening, being respectful of others, and acknowledging that we are all striving to support and improve our community. We'll move us into roll call. Duncan? Here. Barlinger? Here. Gabriel? Here. Kramer? Is absent, and Whitehead.
Here.
All right. Next to perfecting and improving the agenda. Kami, any changes to the agenda tonight?
No changes, Mayor.
All right,
I will move to perfecting the procedure. Then I'll second.
all right, Duncan,
Yes.
Farling.
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Whitehead.
Yes.
All right, next is citizen speak. If there's anybody here that would like to speak on any items that are not on the agenda this evening. That moves down to, the consent agenda. That's the approval of the minutes from the April 24th special meeting and the May 1st regular meeting. Approval of the list of bills, treasurer's reports and transfers, building permits. There is one, events for the core four. Anything you'd like to speak on that?
I've spoken with some, city staff, Cami and others. Does anybody have any questions about the permit process or the route or the event in general or?
The route is basically the same route as what we had last weekend, or 2 weekends ago. Sorry.
All right. Next we have the Beef Days leagues, and then we do have an appointment, to the Board of Adjustment.
I'll move to consent the agenda.
I'll second.
All right, Duncan?
Yes.
Farling?
Yes.
Gabriel? Whitehead.
Yeah.
Next, Public Works Director report, Scotty.
Yeah, May 25th, next Saturday, not a week from this coming Saturday. We have the Weekend Warrior event in town. You guys have already approved that. May 25th is also the dog park opening, so we've been frantic trying to get, things ready for that. The guys finished up the landscaping and seating around the benches today. May 25th is also opening day for the splash pad. So next week, that is, primary agenda. Have that ready to go. The dugouts down at the SRNA for fields 3 and 4 are near completion. We're waiting on the wood siding to arrive, and then, all we have left after that is paint. The guys conducted some repairs to the sludge storage tank this week. We have a problem in the wintertime, that tank is not agitated and there's no air being pumped into it. It's just basically storage, and we get quite an ice layer. We also have pumps and we have a mixer that sit down in there with the rail system. And as the ice goes up and down, it tends to wreak havoc with the rail system. This time it also messed up the mixer. The guys were down in the tank since we pulled sludge out and land applied it. The tank was empty. They got inside, made the repairs for the rail system, the mixer, and then the loadout pump. The loadout pump has never been looked at since 2008 when it was installed. We loaded both of those up and they made a trip to Des Moines to get, repairs made and tested. And then the last thing I got for you is, you're probably gonna see within the next 2 weeks, maybe some work being done right on the intersection here of Main Street and Iowa. On the northeast corner, we have a water leak. Probably don't notice it because it's just a seepage leak coming up and it goes right into a storm sewer right away. This leak's been there for quite a while. We've known about it. But it's getting to the time where we probably need to address it, and the repair costs for that will get rolled over in next year's budget. So I cut loose the contractor to get that scheduled. That's gonna be actually a big event because we're gonna have to take out the entire bump out, the decorative bump out. We'll have to replace it. We'll have to get into Main Street. So it's going to be quite an extensive repair done. That's all I have.
All right,
How long, do you think that's gonna take?
Probably gonna take 2 days, but permanent repairs are probably gonna take a couple weeks after that. We'll have to get some asphalt repair, get a concrete contractor in to do stamp decorative concrete again.
Perfect, thank you.
Dave.
Not much going on now with the rain repair. It's been a little slow, but did show a few signs of settlement along the Charbel Mill Water project. Just from all the rain that we had, the contractor went and filled those spots and threw some seed balls on those. And that's really about all that we had going on since last meeting. Continue to work on the wastewater plant.
All right, city attorney Kevin. All right, V? V, can you hear us?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I don't have anything really to report. We finished up our budget, submitted all of that. And yeah, just really here to answer any questions and listen to all the exciting summer stuff everybody's getting planned. So yeah, let me know if you need anything from me.
All right, thanks. That takes us down to the public hearing for the fiscal 24 budget amendment. Motion to go into public hearing.
I'll move to go into public hearing.
All right, Duncan?
Yes.
Barlinger?
Yes.
Gabriel? Yeah. Whitehead?
Yes.
We are now in the public hearing. Cammy? Or Travis?
Yep, so on page 12 in your packet, is the first page of the notice of public hearing for this budget amendment. This will be filed with the county recorder, later this month. It needs to be in by May 31st. This document kind of includes both the revenue and expenditure adjustments that are covered in the next couple pages that, I put together that kind of go into detail. Budget amendments are normal. The city of Solon has one per year. Since budgets are set 12 to 18 months out, there are unexpected things that come up in the regular course of city management. So this amendment kind of covers those items. As far as the revenues, the revenue amendments include some higher amounts than expected originally, primarily for building permits, licenses, and inspection fees. That's simply due to a lot more construction and building going on in town, both completed and in progress. We also have some reimbursements, mostly from the Solon Community School District for the community center. Utilities for that are rather high, but the city only pays a certain percentage of those. Finally, the item that can be considered a potential windfall would be the local option sales tax funds that have accrued. We originally budgeted conservatively to watch kind of what happened in Tiffin, who also passed a laws to act. We believe that the increase, the kind of major increase in lost revenue is worth a budget amendment for fiscal year 24. And then on the expenditure side, there are a number of departments and line items you'll see with expenditure amendments. I just want to point out a crucial few. Big one is the property purchase and the beginning engineering for the new wastewater treatment plant. Another big one is the Chavo Elm Street project, but that's being covered by ARPA and lost funds, along with some reserves. We recently received some insurance updates from Ellison to cover multiple departments for the rest of the year. And those are included in the amendment. And then some larger public works items, including tree removals due to the Emerald Ash Borer, some vehicle replacements and a large snowplow repair, as well as repairs for the well number 4 breakdown. So again, yeah, this, the notice of public hearing will be filed prior to the end of this month to meet state regulations.
All right, any questions? Thanks, Travis. All right, we have a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll move to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
Duncan?
Yes.
Barlinger?
Yes.
Gabriel?
Yes.
Whitehead?
Yes.
All right, takes us down to old business. We have ordinance 483, amending chapters 50 and 69, the parking regulations. This is the third and final reading. Any questions or any updates?
We made the change from last time, so it's all ready to go for the final reading.
I'll move to approve ordinance 483.
All right, Duncan?
Yes.
Barlinger?
Yes.
Gabriel? Whitehead?
Yes.
All right, takes us down to new business, resolution 2419, the Trail Ridge Estates Part 3 preliminary plat.
We'll have Dave talk about this, yeah.
So this preliminary plat is just for you, is labeled part 3 in the southwest. And this was an intersection of the street and looking at this going that street, the west boundary of the subdivision. You know, that it would be a trail that connects down to the county trail on the west side of the subdivision. And there's also a couple of outlots that are included in this. Cammie's provided a good overview and the notes that she provided, put forth, for council. Talks a little bit about, the process here. This is a little bit, different than we normally see, where, we're looking at having to get the developers agreement to cover a lot of these things. And, some of this is a little bit out of order. And the outlots,
speak up?
sure, the outlots are a little bit different labeled than the master developers agreement that they previously filed. So there's a lot of coordination that's required in order to get all of this put together. And the other issue, when we look at the review on this, is that currently they have one access and they're limited to 65 lots. Phase 1A and 1B has 65 lots. So if we allow this part 3, there are additional 6 lots that would put us over that threshold. There's been some discussion with the developers that we could limit the number of lots that would be developed in part 1A, B, or part 3 in order to make sure that we didn't get more than 65 houses or doors built in this area. So that would also have to be put into the developers agreement. Kevin's been working on that. But there were a couple of concerns that were mentioned. One, not wanting to set a precedent for allowing this, particularly where we're intentionally going around the requirement for a number of lots. The other is these small portions where we have 6 lot developments on a much larger portion. So those are 2 of the things that we have looked at is probably the negative aspects of it. The positive aspect is that we do get that trail connection on the west side, and there are some additional amenities that would help sell lots in this development. So that's what we're dealing with. Anybody have any questions as far as what they're proposing? I had done a review of this, provided some comments to them. There were a few things utility wise and sidewalk, those have been addressed. And Kevin, I think you're working on the developers agreement. I don't know where that's.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot, if this plan is approved, there are a lot of changes that need to be made to the master development agreement because there was in 4 phases. And there were, the outlot letters have changed. There's some other phasing stuff that needs to be done. So before we went through that exercise, we want to make sure you had the plat and then that we can bring the agreements back to the next meeting. Depending on what you want to do with this. So we didn't want to spend a lot of time redoing the agreements unless you guys were going to approve this and then whatever direction you wanted in the agreements anyway. So I think it's good to get the plat from you to see what your thoughts on the plat are before we enter the agreements. And I would suggest item 15 would come back at the next meeting. Depending on how you went for this.
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in because I think there's just a little hesitation here from staff that there are some pros to, we would like to see this development continue to thrive. At the same time, this is just out of order and it's out of process. And so before we invested a lot of time in it, we just want to get council to weigh in on your thoughts. The 65 lot precedent, I think, is a pretty important conversation.
With the 6 lot addition, is there a reason why it was kind of left out initially with that other trail connection? The reasons for it, I definitely understand, but we also have a process that we need to stick to.
Absolutely appreciate it. So, to circle back on that, in February, we met with Dave and Cammie, I said, hey, we really want to build that park. Is there a way we can do it right now? We kind of looked at it when it's kind of would be an island out there. It's kind of would be really hard to plat and make a lot out there by itself. And then we talked about having parking for people that wanted to use it and connections and fire hydrants, all that. And the really only way to achieve it would be if we extended the street and got that turnaround and platted those lots so that we could plat the outlots and put the improvements on them for the parks and then give it to the city. So that's how we ended up here. On the original one, we were, I think, more concerned about getting in and probably back down to the bottom of that cul-de-sac. And just the more we get it, the more comments we get. And we say that I know you guys have a lot of pushbacks for requiring parts to be put in, pocket parts to be put in. But yeah, we see the value and just want to get ahead of it and get that in there. So that's the reason with the smaller development. And at that time, we acknowledged right away, like we know that there's a 65 door maximum for that entrance. And if that's something that we can address within the development agreement, just protect you that at no time shall there be more than 65. We're more than amenable to that.
Yep, definitely appreciative of the thought of wanting to get the parking sooner rather than later. We don't always see that by any means.
Right.
I guess I'll open up for other comments or for thoughts.
I like the logic, it would like the city staff though, and we're setting a precedent, we're getting these requests all the time, I would be against it, but if we can justify. I would like to have the park sooner rather than later, if city staff doesn't object it going beyond the process, like I don't wanna open up Pandora's box. But the logic here seems straightforward, and if Kevin and Cammy can get the agreements updated so that we can get the park in sooner, then go that route. I just don't think we need to start this precedent. If they wanted to do, if they were ready to do the next phase, then I would be okay with it, but I don't think, otherwise, what's gonna be next time, they're gonna wanna do one lot or 3 lots. I don't think that, we need to be wavering from what our agreement is. We fought hard to get this agreement, to get this whole thing underway. And now to come back and change it and say, well, we want to do a little bit here and a little bit there. I just can't get on board with that.
I agree with John wholeheartedly. I don't see any way we can go and do this. I just don't see it.
I agree.
With that, is any motion to approve the resolution? No. All right. Sir. I don't know if there's anything else that we have. Thank you for that for it. Yes. All right, so that will skip over 15 then. Correct, Kevin? All right, it takes us down to number 16, the TIF request for the Solon Hardware Store. Cammy?
Yeah, thank you. Tom Trump, I'm not sure if Tom's there. I can't see in the room very well.
Nope.
No, he's
Tom, as you know, the March 2023 tornado caused some damage to the hardware store. We've been working with Tom for several months to try to find a resolution. And he's finally been able to narrow down some contractors, get some bids, and bring this TIF request to the table. The finance committee, both I believe was Steve and Cole, met with Tom and his contractor a few weeks ago, and the repairs are around $78,000. And the request, I'll have Steve or Cole go ahead and share what their thoughts are, and then Kevin can talk a little bit about how the forgivable loan works.
Yeah, me and Duncan had talked with Cammy, and we thought $55,000 was an appropriate amount. That's the third highest tip we've ever offered anyone. We didn't necessarily feel that the full amount was appropriate in this situation. We feel that that amount would be beneficial to the community because it gets one of our landmark businesses downtown that has been with us for years, hopefully repaired and back on Main Street, and hopefully get that scaffolding pulled down sooner rather than later. But we felt 55,000 was an appropriate amount.
And I think the other thing, and I gotta give Kevin credit for bringing it to our attention, that going the way of a forgivable loan was certainly something that I hadn't thought about. I don't know about Cole, but makes sense. If I'm sitting on the other side of the table, it allows me a forgivable loan to do the repairs. If I'm there in 5 years, it's something I think, didn't we say, Kevin, that could be passed on if they would sell? It would just be.
If they were selling for if they would sell for, the same type of business, we can, the new owner would have to assume the responsibilities that are under the development agreement, right? You could pass that along you could pass that along in an agreement.
And I think as Paul just stated, that the money amount is at the top end, and I think that's fair to all parties and fair to us as a city and where we've been since I've been on council for years. I think it's more than fair. And I think the forgiving the loan is certainly a great avenue to go for them, that they can get the repairs done in 5 years. It's forgivable, so.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that how we've done tip money for others in the past with the Bluebird? I believe we did something similar to that when I was on the finance committee.
Some of them are rebates where you pay every year.
Right.
This one, we give them the
Okay.
money. This one, we would give him the money up front, so he could use that to leverage the rest of the money to build
Mhm.
do the repairs. And then every year that he's there, so it's 40, so the 15,000 is for the scaffolding that's been there, we
Right.
paid that, so.
Right.
The 40,000 additional would be, we give him the $40,000, and then every year he's there after the repairs are done, $8,000 would come off, so if you'd have to stay open as a business and you'd have to pay your taxes, that's the two things that you would require, and if he certifies that every year for 5 years, it would be forgiven totally. If he leaves like in every year, $8,000 will be forgiven until the 5 years is up, so.
Are there milestones or timelines that we have in there? I know the
Well-
scaffolding's been up for
Well, we're gonna have
over
to,
a year, and
any agreement we have will have timelines on when the repair has to be done, the scaffolding has to be removed, everything like that, so, but I think what we're looking for here is just blessing or that this is the type of agreement you want me to draft and go ahead and get something over to them.
I'm okay with it.
Lauren, any thoughts from you on it?
I'm in agreement.
And I think, in our discussion as a committee, and Cole has really stated very well. I mean, we're acknowledging the 45 plus years they've been here as a business. They've been a good business on Main Street for us. And I'm just glad that we have this method that can give them what they want. They have acknowledged that they may sell, that's up to them, not us. So I think we're giving them a pretty good avenue to say, okay, if we want to stay open as a business, here we are, we have a forgivable 5-year loan that would work very well for them, so.
And one of the other benefits is if you decide to sell in year 2, year 3, and it's not a related business, then the city gets its money back, either through the sale or something.
Yeah, well, there will be a recording, so before they sold it, they would have to get the lien taken off. So-
Yeah.
Right.
So, one way or the other, we'd be protected that way.
So there is a lien file
So
per
what'll happen
se.
is we'll do a development agreement, they'll sign a promissory note for the whole $40,000, and then we would file something of record that shows.
Gotcha.
Just a memorandum that shows there's an agreement in place, and before any sale, you have to get a sign off from the city. If it's to a related party, I mean, either way, any sale before the end of the 5 years, it has to sign off the city. And that'll hold up any closing before any sale would happen, so we'd be protected that way.
Makes sense.
And for some reason, the promissory note, somebody could file bankrupt. I'm not saying that's happening. They could file bankruptcy and get out of that, but you still have when you have bankruptcy, the property lien will stay in place, so.
Right.
And we'll make sure that if he gets extra financing from a bank, that our loan is above his, or we'll have to figure that out with the bank, because
Right.
78,000, the building's worth more than that anyway, so there had to be a sale or something like that, the building that should be recovered anyways.
Do we need a motion?
That's what I was just thinking.
Yeah, just a
probably
motion that's what we want to offer in an agreement. We have to do an urban renewal amendment first, but we wanted to make sure you guys were on board with this before we did this.
I'll move to, oh, go ahead.
I'll move to approve it, to approve the Sullivan Hardware Store tip request at the amount of $55,000.
No, second.
All right, Duncan,
Yes.
Harley.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yeah.
Whitehead.
Yes,
All right, takes us down to number 17, change of use request from Prairie Equity Group.
Yes, Cammy had done something in the note. Remember, back in February of last year, Mr. Wells brought this request in. There are 2 units in the building that he wanted to use for a assembly type occupancy. When we did the original parking on that, where the calculations were in the development agreement were that those were gonna be parked as retail, so the occupancy, wouldn't match up. So what, under our code, the council can, change the parking requirements, but they had to have a parking study done, which, they have done. I believe it was Snyder that did that, Dave?
Yeah.
Do you wanna go ahead and, just give a brief update on the, what you received from Snyder then?
Sure, so we received a study from Snyder. They went out, they did traffic counts or parking counts during different periods. And the highest count was on a weekend. They looked at the number of spaces that were occupied. They looked at how many rooms were full in the hotel and what the use was for the residential units, and then evaluated how many spaces were still available. That was the information they provided, which indicates there are a number of spots still there that could be used for that additional use of the gathering space. We reviewed that, took a look at their calculations for the different uses. They're slightly different than what the city's requirements are. So I put together a review letter, and in that there's a table that shows what the difference is as far as what they calculated and what the city would look at. Keep in mind that one of the big things here is that they had initially requested up to 7 people standing. And in the evaluation that Snyder did, they had mentioned that they could limit that to 48 people. Where this starts to come into play is that there are also some fire code and building code requirements based on occupancy. So the International Building Code has some requirements and how they classify the space, what the exit panic hardware has to be on the doors and so forth. So we wanted to make sure that we knew how many people were going to be in here. If they do limit it to 48, it has to be stated that that is the limit, that's the occupancy load that they can have in there, even though by code, if they were to go to a higher classification, they could put in 70 people or more, it'd still be okay. But if they're listing that they're going to be 48, and we're going to review it as 48, and look at the IBC and the NFPA, we want to make sure that we limit it to 48. That would reduce our count on that gathering space code requirement of 18 spaces. And that would take that down. We need 1 per 4 people. So at 48, we would need 12 instead of 18. So that does reduce that by a bit. Excuse me. So again, the peak parking they identified was on April 6th. At that time, 100% of the apartments were occupied and 3 hotel rooms were occupied. There were 42 spaces still available. But we wanted to make sure you understood that at April 6th is probably a little bit different condition than we get into the middle of summer and we have a little bit more activity in town. And this also did not have anything going on with their secondary space, which would be the stables. And if they have an event there, that would also have some additional parking. Realizing that we're just looking at this from the standpoint of from their parking study, do they meet? Yes. But there are some conditions that could have a higher peak, just like heat days. And we don't expect anybody to comply with the parking code during heat days. But if we feel that there are going to be a large number of events that are going to create frequent overages, that would be concerning. However, they've indicated that there are 34 parking spaces available in the project parking lots based on the peak usage that was identified during their study period. So when we look at an additional 12 spaces for 48 people compared to the 34 that were available at that peak time, is there a concern that we're going to have a number of events that are going to occupy all those spaces and also have that event space utilized to full capacity? That is really the concern, but I think they've given us a pretty good baseline that during normal operation, there isn't a parking issue and they can handle that addition. It's just whether or not we would have to get into that peak situation frequently.
And you talked, that was a Saturday, was it during the day that was
Yes.
take place? Okay. I just know, just looking at their map where they have public parking available, it can be a Wednesday night. You go up and streets full, the parking lot's full, all the public parking areas where you have to park a few blocks away just to grab dinner in town. So that's a Saturday afternoon. It's a lot easier to find a spot on Main Street or Dubuque than an evening. So that would be one area of concern that I would have.
And we also, the next item is the amendment to the development agreement, and they have in the development agreement limited to the occupancy rate to 48, so that none of the building and fire codes that David suggested with issues with that, so that would be taken care of. So they have complied with that requirement also.
And I'm gonna jump in. I couldn't hear Dave real well, but, and I know that several of you were not part of that original site plan review, that had waived 20 parking spaces originally. So sorry if I'm repeating that. I just couldn't hear Dave very well.
Any questions, comments, thoughts?
Chris McBride is the representative. If you have any questions for representing Prairie Equity Group, if you have any questions.
I'm Prairie Equity Group.
So if you have any questions for her, I'm sure she'd be willing to answer them also.
Obviously, it'll vary season to season, but how often do you think you're gonna be packed beyond your the current parking limits that will be bringing out into the public
Oh,
parking?
if we could be packed.
I know.
I think I would say that, first of all, I did want to reiterate that we are looking at the 48 limitation. I think when the application was originally submitted, my client sort of did that without consulting with me and Snyder. And when we realized, oh, that's going to require a whole bunch of improvements to the space in terms of fire and all those kinds of things, that didn't seem like a good idea. I think it won't be that often. And I think the reason it won't be that often is most of the time, the use of that space for the assembly space is often done in conjunction with the events at the other coordinated facility, right? What oftentimes happens is a wedding will want to have their event at the Palmer Stable. They're staying at the hotel. They want the conference room as a place, the assembly space as a place to meet and have sandwiches as they prepare, or have their bride get ready, or, you know, have snacks afterwards. So it's often a complementary use, not an additional supplementary use, right? What they're finding is the hotel doesn't have a conference room in and of itself. And so a lot of times, you know, the hotel guests would be also the people who would be using the meeting space. So I think, stolen beef days might be a problem.
Yeah.
And I think what I would say is, you know, Snyder went out 3 times a day on 5 different occasions, so 15 times to do the counts. My clients also did some counts on 3 additional times. At no time were we over 20% full in our own lots without using any city parking. So, I mean, I think there's more than adequate parking there for the use. Happy to answer any other questions you have.
I know that parking is just a touchy subject in town with that, and I know we had already given a variance on it, so I'd have some hesitancies on that, especially if all the counts were done winter, early spring. Summer, fall, whole different story out in town. You see that just with all the sporting events going on now, or school events.
I think the one thing that I think is also important for the council to know, right, is that part of our difference between our number and the city's numbers is we have 10 apartment units. They're all 1-bedroom units, and the city code requires us to have 3 parking spaces for a 1-bedroom apartment. Our difference in our number is we're accounting for 2 paid parking spaces for a 1-bedroom apartment. I don't know of very many 1-bedroom apartments that have 3 cars. It seems like an awful dense requirement for a 1-bedroom apartment. So I think that's where the difference comes in. As to your variance comment, I would also say, I think that the parking study shows that we're not using the variance you gave us. We have adequate parking in our own lots. We're only using about 15% of the lots that are the spaces we provide without using any of the city's variance parking requirements.
I wanted to jump in, and also, I know parking was the primary concern that council had when this came up last year. And I had, included in my report that, you know, there's some other variables that we need to take into consideration, and that has to do with alcohol. You know, is alcohol sale going to be happening? Is it going to be, you know, we need to talk about that. We need to talk about, is alcohol being transferred between the two event facilities? And just really just the enforcement of alcohol and oversight of making sure that this doesn't exceed the 48. And also the fact that, you know, we've had events happening in here without this change of use. So that concerns me that, you know, there seems to be just a disregard to city policies already.
The events that you're seeing happening there, are they events that are happening through the hotel, or are they graduation parties? What events that you've heard about have been happening here? Because as she stated, it's only going to be basically used as a conference center, but the events that I've heard that have been happening there have been birthday parties and graduation parties and things of that sort of, not people that were staying at the hotel.
I can't
Jamie.
verify. I haven't been, you know, I observed the events, and they
Okay.
appear to be they appear to be what you're stating, John, either a birthday party, a bridal shower, something to that effect.
And I have seen those advertised on Facebook that he's trying to rent those for that in blatant disregard for the city's requirements. So it's going to make us hard. It's going to make it hard for me to want to give any type of variance when we've asked for something and it's been thrown right back in our face. So that's kind of where I'm at.
I appreciate that, and I can only answer the questions that I'm asked, and I understand your perspective. I think that there are a couple of things that I would say in response, right? First of all, I mean, there's nothing in the development agreement that talks about use of alcohol in any of this space, and I think that whether we're talking about an amendment to the development agreement for this space, that's a different issue. If you have concerns about alcohol use or violation of an alcohol privilege, that a permit, then I think then the appropriate avenue is to address that through that mechanism, not hold up an amendment to the development agreement to the request for parking when that has nothing to do with parking and is an unrelated.
Well, what I'm saying is what you told us, what
No.
you said previously
No,
is absolutely not what's
I'm not
happening.
done. I'm not done. I think I did not mean to represent to you that every single use of the facility was going to be cooperative or complementary use. And to the extent that I left you with the impression that he's never going to use it for anything other than that, that was not what I intended to communicate. What I intended to communicate is it would often be a complementary use, particularly when the Palmer Stable was being utilized also, right? Because that's when a lot of the demand for it is. I understand that, that you're frustrated, that there was appeared to be a disregard for.
There was an appearance. There was no appearance.
Okay, I apologize that you feel that there was a disregard for the city's rules. I would say to you that I think there is some concern that the development agreement, there was some debate about whether an amendment to the development agreement or whether this was a change of use was actually required. Because if you read the development agreement, nowhere in there does it say that these spaces had to be used for retail use. It says commercial use, and I'm happy to show it to you if you'd like. And this is.
I would have to go back to our city attorney and have him comment on that, because he's the one that it has the degree in law and wrote it.
I do too. And what I would say to you is if you read the development agreement, and I'll happily read it to you, what it indicates is that the spaces on that first floor were for commercial use and that restaurants and bars were prohibited. There's nothing in the development agreement that prohibits an assembly type use. Kevin and I met on several occasions and talked about the fact that, yes, a retail parking count was probably utilized to calculate the parking, but there's nothing within the agreement itself that prohibits an assembly use like it does a restaurant or a bar, right? And so Kevin and I discussed it, agreed that maybe the agreement in retrospect wasn't as clear as it should have been, and that the best way to approach this was to do the traffic study, do the work, and present our case that the parking is adequate. I apologize if you feel like the city's rules and regulations were flouted or disregarded. All I can tell you is I have done my level best to make sure that doesn't happen anymore and to comply with the city, and have worked cooperatively with Kevin to get that done.
That's, I guess, you're where you're at then. Yeah.
I'm doing what I can.
Yep. Right.
And I hope Kevin would agree. I mean, I don't think I misrepresented.
I met with Tristan on numerous occasions to try to get this solved, and I think, yeah, I mean, the issue is always, you know, it's the parking and it's the parking requirements, and I think it was pretty clear that we used the retail parking requirement for those spaces, and I think at some point there was, I've been working with her to try to, you know, her clients might have done stuff that she wouldn't have recommended, I can guarantee you that, but that's, you know, it is what it is at this point, so we've been trying to get this parking thing done for a long time, you know. We started this in February of last year, I believe, was when this all first started, and so here we are. I mean, that like I said, the agreement we have for the second item does limit to 48 spaces, and which takes the building and fire code issues out of there. Obviously, you know, we don't have the time there. We're not gonna go in there and check and see if there's, you know, 49 people, 50, you know, this is the way we're documenting that they, you know, if there's a violation of the agreement now and something happens there, they're gonna get cited from now on. I mean, this is just the way it is. We, you know.
I can also represent to you that this afternoon before I came here, I said to my clients, I read Dave's report. I anticipate that the city is going to be very firm in their limitation to the 48 spaces, and that that's going to be in the development agreement, and that that's enforceable. You understand that, and you can live with that, right? And they assured me that they would.
I mean, and I'm getting a clearer picture. So they assured us that they wouldn't violate the parking, but they've already violated other things. So that gives me no reassurance that they said they wouldn't violate the 48. They violate the alcohol, and we've asked them not to. It's been verified that they have. So I don't, not that I don't believe it, but I'm less than, you know, we'll do this, but we've done this in the past, so I know what their word is. And I appreciate what you did. I mean, I'm not saying that, I'm just saying that
You've been put in a difficult position.
yes.
I guess what I would say to that is, first of all, I'm not aware of any confirmed alcohol citations. I'm not aware of any, right? I've looked at Iowa courts online. I am not, and I've looked with the Department of Alcohol. I'm not aware of any confirmed alcohol violations.
I didn't
Again.
say there were any alcohol violations.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I thought that's what you said.
No, that,
Okay, then I misunderstood.
yes.
I think it goes back to the events that should have not been happening yet. We see advertisements on Facebook of a birthday parties here. There's a baby shower here. I believe it was last summer for Beef Days. It was come gather here with your classmates while you're back in town. And it's all these things where it was time and time again. It's, you don't have the approval to do those things. And based on what we've seen online and the number of people in there, we can see where our opinions and what we have just agreements are, where they stand in others' opinions.
Completely disregarded.
And I guess what I would say in response to that, and I can't fix that, right? All I can do is when I'm retained is say, the way to do this is to fix the problem and comply with the ordinance and get it right, right? And so I told them to do the study. to do the work, to pay me to write the amendment to the development agreement, and to come here and do that, right? And so that's why I'm here, is I'm trying to do it the right way and honor the regulations and satisfy the city of Solon. That's why I'm here.
Comments, or thoughts?
Tammy, any additional thoughts? Any additional thoughts?
So my concerns I've shared, you know, there's just been these events have occurred. You know, you're putting us in a very difficult position as staff. Who's gonna enforce 48 people? Who's going to make sure that alcohol isn't, you know, going up and down Main Street? I'm just asking you that if you're going to do this, to make sure you do it in a manner that it's somehow enforceable, because we apparently have seen from the past rentals and activity in this space that there's a bit of a disregard to city policy. So please, if you're going to consider this, make sure you're doing it in a way that at least gives us the ability to enforce it. I don't really know what that looks like, but which makes it even more difficult.
I mean, aren't occupancy limits always, I mean, don't commercial spaces generally have occupancy limits? And aren't they enforceable always? I mean, I don't mean,
Yeah, I mean,
that's not something I know about, right?
I think I think we beat this to death. The problem is they don't care. From what they've done, and you've done everything you can to try to bring it. We've talked about this. We've talked about going through the right channel to do this, and I think we've gotten to that point. It's just up to the, you know, it's just to the point where the agreements it's in the agreement that, you know, but like you said,
I think I'm gonna go back and sound like a broken record from when I talked about something earlier on the agenda, and we have a developers agreement. I don't think it sets good precedent that we change this agreement, as I don't think it was a good idea that we changed the last agreement, so I am not in favor of this.
I would be in that boat myself.
All right. That, jump down to item 19.
Yep.
2024 street improvements. Scott?
Yeah, so I met with the street department, what was it, a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, it was before the last meeting.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, John and Andrew, and I got proposals together for the, curb and gutter project this year, and the plan is to finish out South Iowa Street from 4th Street down to 5th Street. Both sides of the roadway, plus replace, a big majority of the sidewalk on the west side. There is no sidewalk on the east side. Also, another problem area that we've talked about many times is Main Street between Highway 1 and Cedar. And I know we've had Beaster and Kim look at that. We know, you know, through some past development that we're unsure what's gonna happen to that home that's located there. Right now, it's a rental property. But the roadway, we cannot keep it maintained. That roadway is perfectly flat. There is no drainage, water sits there. It's a seal coat roadway. And I would like to go ahead and put some curb and gutter in, finish that roadway off with curb and gutter, and then do an asphalt overlay and reshape it so we actually have some positive drainage that would carry through the intersection. And then how are we gonna pay for all this? Well, the curb and gutter project comes out of general streets, and we have budgeted $120,000. That project has come in at an estimated amount of $75,268.87. which would leave us a surplus of 44,731.13. The Main Street project is budgeted, or proposal is 85,582.70. So you take the leftover from general roads under storm, would leave us $40,851.57. There is some money sitting there from Windmill Estates, impact fees that we could utilize towards this. Also, I have $100,000 budgeted for in road use for street repairs, that we could utilize some of that money also. Right now, I don't have a lot planned for patching or seal coat, and we could utilize some of that money. There's also in road use, $80,000 budgeted for patch repairs to concrete roadways. And of course, when we do a patch to a concrete roadway, you know, you're usually talking $10,000 at a minimum. And we're getting a lot of those areas that are starting to need some patch, and that's why I included 80,000 in this budget that's coming up. And those patches will do with Old Mill Creek area and also Windmill Estates area. We also have $200,000 budgeted for Prairie Rose Lane to replace a portion of that that's really in bad shape between Windflower Lane and Windflower Lane. Yes, it just so happens. I have not gone out to bids for that yet. That was the engineer's estimate. And I'm gonna lean on Dave here pretty quickly to see what we need to do to get that bid out and try to get that done. The only other stuff that I have slated for this year is some crack sealing. And I'd like to take care of some of that along Fifth Street in front of the high school. And then also the first portion of the SRNA parking lot. And I'd like to use a mastic, you guys have driven down Fifth Street and you clunk in the cracks going across. I'd like to address that and get those sealed up and hopefully taken care of for a good while. I don't think it's a permanent fix. I don't think anything's a permanent fix when you're talking asphalt and concrete. I believe I can speak for the street committee, John. Correct me if I'm wrong, but they were all in favor of this. And with your blessing, I will proceed with getting the contract signed.
Yeah, I believe from everything you had on the list that needed to be done and all the money that you had budgeted for it, you still had a little wiggle room there. So we were happy to try and get all these things done and still account for other things that would come up during the process.
Excellent.
Yep.
I'd be supportive, and I just want to thank you for how diligent you are regarding all of these street repairs and working and prioritizing projects according to need, and just even looking out for little things like making sure our streets drain properly.
Yeah, Tammy and I reviewed the urban renewal plan, so we can continue our curb and gutter program into some newer areas, since we're running out of the original, what was in the original urban renewal plan. So Tammy, does this need a?
And that just, what that does is allow us to collect TIF to pay for that curb and gutter.
Right.
So that $120,000 annually is reimbursed. However, it's a little, you have to spend the money one year, you collect it another year, and then we repay ourselves the third year. But that's.
Let's need a budget or council approval. Motion.
I'll move to approve the street improvements for 2024.
I'll second.
All right, Duncan?
Yes.
Arlene?
Yes.
Gabriel?
Yeah.
Whitehead?
Yes.
All right, takes us down to ordinance, 484, the zoning code amendments. This would be the first reading on that.
Dave's gonna talk about that. P and Z's been working on this for a few months, and I think it's gonna be a quick conversation.
This code is with respect to the retaining walls and fences, and we added some definitions in there. Make sure they clarified, what retaining wall was, what fence was, what structure was. There's some additional language in there that talks about, retaining wall required within 5 feet of a utility, or retaining walls shall be located as no parts within 5 feet of the utility easement. And that's slightly different than, fence, so we want to make sure of was that if we had an easement and we had a retaining wall that was supporting a load, and we had a dig next to that in that easement, we didn't jeopardize the stability of that wall. So there's enough space between that easement line and the wall that if we dig in our easement, we don't have any issue with that wall being jeopardized. Whatever it's supporting, whether it's dirt, whether it's a structure up on top, something else. So we wanted to make sure that we have that clarified and distinguished. The fences can be right up to the easement. The retaining wall has to maintain that 5-foot separation. We also talked about the definition for retaining wall, trying to match what's in our building permit for consistency. So when you read this, that's where that description comes from in that amendment, where it talks about having a live load equal or greater than 40 PSF or greater than 8 feet in height measured from the bottom of the foot to the top of the wall. So that's where that language comes from. The rest of this amendment is with respect to building heights. And we went through the various sections and looked at each zoning district with the exception of, I believe, agricultural was not included this and industrial was not included in this. But we wanted to clarify that 35 feet and 2 stories, not 2.5 stories, up to 35 feet because of the issues that we've had. So this is to clarify 2 stories not to exceed 35 feet for all districts except for agricultural and industrial. Those will be looked at individually.
Any questions or comments?
We'll move to approve ordinance, number 44 zoning code amendments.
I'll second.
Duncan? Yes. Farley?
Yes.
Gabriel?
Yeah.
Whitehead?
Yes.
All right, takes us down to ordinance 45, water rates. Cammy?
Yeah, I'm gonna jump in. I'm gonna do the next two. So annually, we increase water and sewer rates 2%. That was approved at budget time. And so those will go into effect July 1st. Also, the sewer ordinance also has the adjustment to increase the sewer debt from $5 to $10. And that was discussed with, Heidi Cool from Northland Securities back in December, and we also discussed it and approved that during the budget process as well. So again, both water and sewer rates will do an annual 2% increase effective July 1st.
I'll move to approve ordinance number 45, water rates.
I'll second.
All right, Duncan? Yes. Farley?
Yes.
Gabriel? Whitehead?
Yes.
All right, since 46 was covered already, any questions or comments over the sewer rate?
I move to approve ordinance 486.
I'll second.
All right, Duncan?
Yes.
Farley?
Yes.
Gabriel?
Yeah.
Whitehead?
Yes.
All right, takes us down to item 23, resolution 2420, the seasonal library clerk.
Yeah, this is a resolution. There was some staffing changes at the library, and after some discussions with Liz, it made sense for them to consider a seasonal library clerk for the summer. This is not a position that is in our wage range, so we're creating a wage range up to $15 an hour. We're not sure this is going to be a permanent position, rather it's going to give it a try. So this will allow us to have a wage range for this position, this resolution.
All right. Any comments or anything, Liz, that
We're
you have?
really excited about this opportunity. We've got some great applications and we'll be interviewing next Thursday. And I think it's going to be a great opportunity for some younger people here and a great help to us during the summer.
Great. I'll echo that. when I was at the last library meeting, it gives a chance to a lot of younger people that don't necessarily get a chance to get library experience before they head off to college, so.
Great, awesome.
I'll move to approve resolution 2420, seasonal library clerk.
All right, Duncan,
Yes.
Farley.
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Whitehead.
Yes.
All right, item 24, resolution 2421, the fiscal 24 budget amendment. Everything that Travis covered for us.
Yes, basically. Yeah.
On that.
There, yes. During the public hearing. We'll go through it again.
I got baseball.
I'll move to approve resolution 2421.
I'll second.
Duncan,
Yes.
Farley.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Whitehead.
Yes.
All right, down to other business. So with the committees, we talked the streets, we got an update on that, nothing from utilities. The TIF meeting that we had with finance was there, nothing from personnel or building needs. Police, no updates from the last meeting. And then we do have the joint meeting on June 19th. I did request that we start the meeting at 5 rather than 5:30. We have a 6:30 first pitch on it. That's not, so we'll try to get down to that. So, all right. Anything else from the committee? All right, City Clerk Suze. All right, Tammy.
I just want to thank everybody, especially those sitting against that west wall, Kevin, Scott, Travis, Susie, and Dave for working with me this week long distance. It was like the agenda kept getting longer and longer, so but nice job, Mayor, getting through it in an hour.
Our council comments. All right, the only comment I have is, Cammy, thank you are on vacation. Thank you for everything you've done this weekend. It's awesome staff that you have as well. Helps make it possible, but thank you for calling in. Lastly, we have a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Safe travels back, Cam.
I think, hitting the door defensive, you know.
Yeah.
I mean, would you want the owls? I wouldn't want it either. Like, yay, can't wait to go do this.
Usually doesn't get out of